Um, I want to talk a little bit about progressives in the United States in the late 1800s, and it's kind of the whole eugenics kind of lasted till I think the 40s. At least after the 40s, I think it became unpopular. In the 1950s, I think that was when it kind of stopped being popular because of Nazis. But if you really think about it, the whole origins of racism in at least the way that the system itself is based on in modernized form, it really stems from progressives in the United States. I mean, maybe there's some other factors too. There definitely some kind of apartheid stuff and other stuff in terms of imperialism, but I'm mainly speaking about home systematic racism of how it affected institutions. Basically, what the progressives in the United States was, you had people, for example, like Woodrow Wilson, who was actually a president. Even if you can even watch that movie called The Birth of a Nation from 1915, or maybe it was 1916, that it was released, and you will see his quote in that movie. Uh, Basically gives some kind of a clarification to the Ku Klux Klan. It's kind of it's definitely sort of like a complicated mess with the Civil War and the history of it. But basically, the point here is the progressives back then, in a sense, was actually supportive of eugenics. So basically, what that led to was, the whole uh, basically that people of certain qualities in terms of genes and stuff. If you had some kind of bad genes that was undesirable, then you couldn't like reproduce with that person. And for example, if you were kind of like a retarded person, or you had some kind of deficiencies, or a trait in uh, whether it was intellectual or some physical ability, then you were kind of just disposed of. I mean, they didn't literally knock down your door or something, but essentially, there was some kind of sterilization that was also going on at the time to kind of favor people with good genes, and that was the idea. And but the problem is this also led to some racist viewpoints on certain people, that they were not attractive, or and also it's a big lie too, because it's biology that determined whether you have good traits or genes or something, because you kind of have to have the willpower to do something. So I think it's kind of nonsense either way, but that's how people fought back then. It was if you had reproduction with someone with good genes, then you would come out all right. I mean, I guess there's some truth to stuff that, if, for example, inbreeding is bad, because that will create a. But that's something else. So that's more natural problem of inbreeding, which is completely sensible. Uh, but basically, the point is, when I mean that progressives created racism in that era of that time, is yeah, you can just see how what their view was on eugenics, and you also can see in a sense people who called themselves progressives back then, who in a sense had very racist views, and what that led to was the KKK and such. And even in the movie from Birth of a Nation, which kind of resurrected the KKK, Woodrow Wilson, he was a progressive. So basically, the thing about progressives is uh, the thing with racism in the United States is it's a very profitable system, and it still exists today. Liberals haven't really changed that much. I mean, you can argue racism would still exist even without them, but it would be more. Uh, I guess it will be more sort of like angry racism, which is bad. But basically, the point is there's difference between actual systemic racism, which is essentially what progressives do, which ironically they call to, but they try to accuse the right wingers of doing it for some reason. But basically, it's about manipulating people, being manipulative, and just say that you are fighting for a virtuous cause, which is just a hack job of journalism and just fake virtue signaling, because you're just trying to convince people that you are on their side when you are actually just exploiting them for racist views. Because baiting people in society is very easy to kind of get in power. You kind of get a sense of justice, but you also feel like you actually are profiting off this business. So it's a very manipulative form of system, and that's what I mean when progressives actually created racism with that form of system, because it's very easy to get if you can get people to kind of hate each other, and kind of get easy sitting there and just preaching out the loud chore, or and basically just kind of enjoying and relaxing while people are suffering. So yeah, that's basically progressive in a nutshell. They're just manipulative and exploitive, and there's also problems with rhinos and people who kind of also have kind of stupid love with progressive and try to bait people to on the race in the United States. And I think it's a culture that's a problem too. With the whole fixation on race in that country is ridiculous. But instead of seeing people as individuals, but yeah, the point is, in terms of historical terms, uh, in a sense, they basically created the whole nature of it in terms of the whole culture around it, in a sense. And so that's why you never hear people shut up about it, because it's like people have to talk about it. They just have to feel like they are actually yeah, I'm fighting for a righteous cause that I'm actually creating myself. Thank you. I mean, there's a difference between objective racism, which is, okay, let's say if some asshole, was being, a jerk somewhere, and you kind of have to crack down upon that. Okay, that makes sense, but usually it's just a talk, and making it into some small matters into a big thing, rather than actually, okay, for example, let's take police brutality. Okay, so Second Amendment. Okay, that's a good argument, but no. In a system where you kind of has the profit of racism, you have to say that, oh, that's racist motivated or something, instead of just, okay, maybe there's something more to this. Maybe there's something, Second Amendment means, gangs and people in general, they can have guns, so cops have to be armed and they shoot people. Doesn't that occur to you as common sense? And there's also this whole Second Amendment thing, which is popular among conservatives in the United States, is the argument that the right to bear arms is to kind of prevent a government from being authoritative. But there's some con to this, because that means gangs can also argue this too, and protect their property. You get what I mean? That's the kind of the conflict with the Second Amendment thing. So that's more the objective view, at least. But yeah, in a sense, it's a very chaotic system, but it stems from progressives, and it's also how the Nazis also apply this actually to their authoritarian view too. Because if you even look at Benito Mussolini, I mean, he started as a revolutionary Marxist before he essentially developed into a fascist of Italy, of the fascist party. So the whole authoritarian manipulation, that's socialism and Nazism have huge in common. So they are basically the same, almost, in a sense. I think only the reason why socialists get mad if you compare them to that is because they kind of want to be authoritarians, but they don't want to be compared to Nazis because they actually want to separate themselves from that. So yeah, but they are essentially the same. It's just they don't like the methods they use. In terms of having more, you could argue that fascism is more focused on nationalism, maybe. Uh, in terms of focus on the nation, and well, that's not what a Marxist goal is. It's about globalization and uh, essentially, where people don't have poverty and such. But the point is, the goal is still authoritarianism. It's about controlling people and manipulating them, and that's what I'm trying to tie it down to progressives back then in terms of being authoritarians, manipulation. You see what I mean? So racism simply has a huge factor to that movement of how it developed, which I don't hear anybody talk about, because it's really that easy that the progressives in the past and even current time, they're still obsessed by this whole notion that people owe them to give them power and such. So if you really want to see where that originated from, yeah, it's basically there. But yeah, I do think civil rights has something thing right though, with the 60s at least, with whole anti-discrimination law, that you can't discriminate people based on their sex, race, or ethnic origin. That was some one good thing, at least from the 1960s, that I actually liked. So there was some good thing that came out of that era, I think. But yeah, in terms of the origin of the conflict itself, You have, I guess you can argue that there are definitely some assholes that are actually racist, that definitely exist, but in terms of the system, that's what I'm talking about there. The manipulation culture that kind of set the stage of just trying to have some profitable motives. It really stems from progressives in the United States, or at least that's what I looked up on the internet. At least it's very interesting. But yeah, feel free to agree or disagree. Thank you for listening, and bye.